Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Keim Report. Wherever you get your podcast, you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Ampire Media. That's Ampire. Always much appreciated when you tune in. And you can always read my work on ESPN.com. And you can go find out for daily camp reports from every team on ESPN.com. In a few minutes, I'll be joined by former Washington Redskins corner Fred Smoot as we break down what's going on at training camp. And I even ask him, with all this stuff with Ron Rivera, ERic Bieniemy, all the comments, was it a big deal? Fred also played for a very demanding coach in Greg Williams and even Marty Schottenheimer, so he can relate to some of what these guys might be going through as they adjust to a coach that's more demanding. Anyway, we'll get to all that, but we also talk about on the field stuff because I don't want to limit it just to that topic because I know you don't want to hear just about that and I don't want to just talk about that. So, but it does have to be addressed because I'm curious, right? You know, is it a big deal? Is it not? I ask, he answers, we go on. Anyway, I'll get to some of that, more of that in a minute, but just a couple programming notes. I will have a podcast after the preseason game, but it may not come out until Saturday morning. So just be aware of that probably. And it would be early Saturday morning. Want a good conversation with someone. So we're going to have that probably Saturday morning because it gets pretty crazy after some of those night games and et cetera. So just easier to do it there. Anyway, so look for it then. I will have another podcast out on Thursday for Thursday and Friday leading into the game with Matthew Parris from the Washington Times, Sam Fortier from the Washington Post, and Pete Haley, formerly of NBC Sports Washington. Just a little roundtable discussion about what we've seen in camp, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and a little bit about the Browns game. What do they want to see in that game? So, and all we know is that Sam Howell is going to start. We don't know how much the Stars are going to play. So a couple things. What happened out at Commanders practice today? Anyway, didn't see a lot of it because I had to write. Also, the big thing out there was Maryland Governor Wes Moore was out there. Limited partner Mitchell Rales was at practice today. And then there was a Virginia delegate out there. And so a lot of stadium stuff going to get going on here, folks. I will say that Wes Moore made a strong pitch for PG County, which is what he's supposed to do. This is going to go on for at least a year, I'm guessing. And it may go on for 2 years before they find their place. The Harris Group understands that this stadium is a big part of their legacy. And these are people who are ultra detailed with decisions like this. I do not expect them to rush into one. And keep in mind that the franchise has been looking for one for a while. This group is not. So it's going to take some time there. So anyway, the other thing that was going on at Redskin Park, at Commanders Park today, was Ron Rivera talking about his comments about the ERic Bieniemy situation, or not his situation, but just that whole thing, whatever you want to call it. So he came out today, read a prepared statement about what he was trying to convey with what he was saying. And even asked, I had people call me and say, why would he go out and say something like that publicly? That's something you keep in house. So I asked him, why did you feel compelled to do that? So for him, what he was saying is that what he said is that he wanted to show where this team was even just a week ago, because those meetings with Bieniemy took place about a week or so ago. And so where they were then you take it to this week where they had some of their best practices. And even Rivera said that he had talked to Bieniemy after practice on Tuesday and let him know that he thought that was their best offensive practice and that he felt like the guys were buying in to what he was doing and how he was doing things. So that's what he said he was trying to convey, that they were here and now they're here and they're buying in, and that's a good thing, right? So this is what he said. And then he even said he told Bieniemy that he put his foot in his mouth and that he sometimes does that, and he did it. He felt like he did it here. Wasn't as clear as he wanted to be. And then he was asked about the comments about him and Del Rio having been head coaches and Bieniemy not. And maybe it's a little bit like maybe do you have to take your foot off the pedal a little bit as a head coach? And one thing that Rivera said when asked about that was that he had played for Buddy Ryan for 2 years, played for Mike Ditka for 2 years, guys who really didn't let their foot off the pedal. So his point was there are different ways to do things, and you do what works for you. That's what Bieniemy's always done, and it's what he's going to always do. So we move on. Now, here's my conversation with former Washington corner Fred Smoot.
The adventure park is ziplining through the trees. It's climbing from platform to platform. It's even an axe throwing competition with your friends. But what the adventure park really is opportunity. reconnecting with friends and family, accomplishing a challenge, and making lasting memories. So book your visit today and choose your own adventure.
Well, Fred, a little bit of a different last couple of days out at the Commander's facility, and Ron had some comments about ERic Bieniemy. And first of all, I want to start in general, your perspective. You played the game, you played for demanding coach and Greg Williams. Was this a big deal? How'd you process it?
Not a big deal at all. At the end of the day, I think the guys got to go through an adjusting period. They got to adjust to the way he coached. They got to adjust to the things that he demands, and they're gonna have to want to do it. Like coaches say, I don't need to make you want to football. Football is what you do. All right, so you should be able to do it 24/7. I enjoyed the way Greg pushed us. I enjoyed the way Greg held us accountable. I enjoyed the way Greg laid it out there and was very truthful. And he used to chew into us. But after a while, we just got so used to it, so callous to it, and understood that was his tempo. That's the way he does things. Now that's the way we do things. All right, so I had to go through a adjustment period, but I am one of them people personally, I respond well to hard coaching. You know, it's like hard parenting. I that teacher that was that mean teacher. You don't respect her and love her until you made something of yourself, and you know that hard teaching is the reason why you are what it is. So I don't think it's a big deal. I just wonder who that player is that went to him and said it. But other than that, at the end of the day, everything's different. They're going to have to adjust, and they're going to have to learn the tempo that he likes the stuff to be done.
Were you surprised that Ron would talk about it?
Yeah, I am. And I see he, apologized about it and said, he probably shouldn't have said anything about it. And I just think Coach he one of them guys, you ask him a question, he going to give you the truth. All right? And sometimes he can be too truthful. And I think that's really what happened on there when they asked him the question. He told him what happened. And he didn't think it was a big deal because he ain't thinking like that. Because in his head, he's saying, I'm going to let him coach this offense like he wants to coach this offense. All right? But I did have a couple of players coming to me and nag about how hard it was. And I'm sure it was more of him saying, I'm glad it's hard. You know what I'm saying? Like, no problem with that. But like I said, more thing where it was a lot of honesty over there.
So again, with Greg Williams, when you played for him, and I covered him, like I know Greg liked to not only be tough, but tell you how tough he was as a coach. So do you remember like who had a hard time with him? Were there a few guys? Because like you guys used to do gassers before practice for God's sake.
Before practice, because he said something that really made sense, and something that I was used to was you play the game tired. All right, so we're going to start off by wearing you out. All right, so as we go, you start to understand how to play under those conditions. And so therefore, we were in the best condition of our lives. And we did have an offense that did a lot of touchdowns. So we had to play 80 snaps a game. So we was ready for that. But a lot of guys didn't really, how should I say, I wouldn't say respond well to it. It was an adjustment period. And I think the one thing about Greg, he challenged you physically, but he really challenged you mentally. Like that was his thing. He's an Ivy League guy. He likes to tell you that constantly. So at the end of the day, he's going to challenge you mentally and physically. And like I think LeVar had an adjustment period. Everton dealing with that situation. Some of the D linemen most definitely, because he expected the D tackles to run like the linebackers. That's just what he played. And that's why a guy like Lorenzo Alexander can make his defense and other guys couldn't, because he liked his guys to be fit and he liked his guys to be able to run. So I just think he had the fire to our feet, and he made us understand quickly. We're not only going to be in shape, we're going to be very physical, and we're going to be one of the smartest defenses in the league. And I think that's what Coach Bieniemy is trying to set the foundation for right now. We're going to practice at a high tempo. We're going to put in 100 plays a day, and we're going to outlast everybody. And I think that's what he's trying to instill in these guys.
Well, there's two things. One, you talk about Greg with the Ivy League. We always joke the second G was for genius in his first name.
Yes.
because he's smart. But the other thing is funny, because when you're talking about this, it's almost like Bieniemy almost coaches like defensive guys would probably love him.
Yes.
He coaches with almost like that kind of mentality.
That intensity and that passion That what defense players love, and being demanded things. Like, you point us in the right direction, and these dogs are hunt. Like, that's what we like to do. So yeah, we would embrace it. Think about it. The one thing we do is we run all day on defense. Like, we run all day long. So being in shape, being pushed to the max, that's what we do. And sometime on offense, Keim, the offensive player can be a little divas. They the divas out the butt. All right. So it's sometimes a little individuality over there when mostly on defense, it's a us mentality. And now that I think about it, maybe Coach Bieniemy is the offensive Greg Williams right now.
I mean, and I think but I've enjoyed watching him.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
I mean, when you watch him, what is it? What gets you going? Like, what is it that you like when you watch him?
Every play. He's looking for assignment. He's looking for detail, and he's looking for effort. Every play, he getting on somebody about finishing, letting you know that every play count, every snap count, everything that you do affects how the overall game. He's crossing those T's and he dotting those I's, and he making them understand that. See, it's easy for a coach to say, all right, this is my mentality, this is my game plan, this is my theory of offense. No, he's telling you right now, we're gonna be physical up front, and we're going to run all day on offense, and we ain't going to allow them to know what we're going to do. If we need to run 80 times in the game, we need to be prepared to do that. If we need to pass 80 times in the game, we need to be flexible and able to get that done. So I like the fact that he demanding the best out of Terry McLaurin. That lets the bottom man on the roster know he sure got to step in line. So I think what he's doing is, think about it, we haven't been good on offense here for a long time. So whatever we've been doing ain't worked. Right. It ain't work. So yes, they're gonna have to adjust to this newness of a new philosophy of somebody that got a new eager and a new energy for his offense and a new expectation. And that's what I love. He putting the bar high, even though we got to understand and be realistic, Keim. This is his first year here. We know sometimes it takes offenses a while to really get going. That's why I'm not all up in arms because defense is killing them, because usually we always killing them this time of year. That's nothing new. But people going to have to be patient and let him install it, because this is Sam Howell first time playing his offense. Terry McLaurin first time playing in his offense. Like, everybody has to get used to what he called, and they got to get used to what he wants from them. So patience is what it's going to take.
And I agree with that. I don't think, even when they was hired, like I would say that you have a young quarterback, you're going to have a lot of new linemen. It takes time to implement and to get it going. You just want to see progress and improvement. Do you think when, because you were here with Marty too, right?
Yes, that's who drafted me. Yeah.
Right. So that's right. I forgot. So that year, you guys are 0-5. And he was working your asses off.
Yes, he
remember that training camp was really hard. So you're 0-5. I remember a lot of players being ready to mutiny. Like, then it turned. But like, do you remember that?
I remember that year. It's my rookie year.
Yes.
So listen, we was in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, and he bent us to his will. And I think it took us not a couple of games to know what he wanted to do on offense and defense. More, we had to build our bodies back up and get ready for the long haul. But yeah, it was just relentless. And Coach Schottenheimer was relentless. I love Coach Schottenheimer because he was making millions of us. And the people that was kind of nagging was the older guys. It's usually always going to be the older guys because they've been successful doing things one way. And here come the new guy in here telling us we're going to do it the other way. But I don't think we had to be as patient as we had to be then, because we was dealing with Jeff George at quarterback, and we ended up having Tony Banks finish the year. So at the end of the day, I think with Sam Howell and with Coach Bieniemy, it's the perfect storm. And when I say it's the perfect storm, it's the perfect storm for us to start out fast, because now for the first 5 teams that got to play us the first month of the year, they have no film to study. They're going to go and they're going to study Kansas City. That's who they're going to study. But they studying Pat Mahomes, first of all, and they studying a playbook that they don't know which parts we're going to take out and which parts we're going to keep. So unpredictability is going to be our ultimate weapon on offense, and we got that twice. We got that unpredictability by ERic Bieniemy's playbook, because nobody know what it looks like. We got unpredictability at the quarterback. Sam Howell, they got one game to study, and that's against the Cowboys. That ain't much. So at the end of the day, because they don't know, because of the unknown, that gives us a chance to start quick, and that gives us a chance to jump out on people, especially with this defense, and especially, and I really do mean this, with Tress Way. With a potent defense and a potent punter like that, you're talking about weapons that allow Sam Howell to get going and make it safe for him, especially early.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to ask you, because to me, this camp has been better than what they've had.
It's because of the offense. The defense still doing what the defense does. Coach Del Rio is doing what Coach Del Rio does. There's nothing different. It's the tempo of the offense. It's the individual drills. Even when I watch them, the small things like doing 2-on-2 instead of 1-on-1. I tell people all the time, 1-on-1 with a cornerback and receiver is not realistic.
Right.
Not realistic. All right. It's just something about it. Now you put two people over there. Now I get to pattern read. Now I get to be situational. You can hear them sometimes when they're doing 2-on-2. It's 3rd and 7. He's letting them know in their head if the route is supposed to be 5, it's 3rd and 7. You need to take that to 7 yards or 7.5. So these are the situational things that I'm really loving in practice. And just some of the drills are very unorthodox. Some of them are very different, and I'm sure the players are happening to adjust to that. So I think he does in real time what he's going to do in the game. Like he don't waste practice. He makes it to where whatever we're going to do in the game, we will practice it 150 times before we even won it one time in the game.
Right. And players like Antonio Gibson said he's in his best shape that he's ever been in. And Logan Thomas was talking about this, I think it was last week, where he's like, this gets you ready for the fourth quarter of games, the way the tempo they play at, they're practicing at. And so, you see that, but it's also, Fred, a lot more situational work. It feels like this summer than the past, and not just the past couple of years, but for a while.
Situational football is the only football. Every time we line up, it's a situation. If it's 1st and 10, situation. 3rd and 3, situation. Red zone, goal zone, situations. If you're not practicing situations, you're not practicing to win the game. And that's what I did really enjoy for playing for Greg Williams. I enjoyed it so much I left and came back. So at the end of the day, I enjoyed playing it so much because we used to game plan to take away routes. Like he was one of the few coordinators that I played for that he was like, we're going to intercept this route, we're going to intercept this route, and we're going to intercept this route. It's going to be doing a 3rd to 3 to 7. Like it's planned. We're planning how we're going to turn the ball over. And that's the detail that I think we're getting over there now. So I think it's just so similar the more and more I watch.
Yeah, no. And my big thing for the offense too has been, they're not game planning. They're not, you're not able to slow the D line with a lot of hesitation stuff. You know what I mean? So it can be hard to get a great read. That's why I'm looking forward to the Cleveland, not just the Cleveland game, but those joint practices with the Ravens. I think it'll tell a lot.
That's going to tell everything. I love practice against the Ravens because, top of the line franchise. And the thing about it is, they're going to have players all over the field. So we'll see a lot there. But not only the screen game helps the offensive lineman. If they getting beat, that's what West Coast teams do. They go to the screen game and they screen to every player, tight end, running back.
Everybody.
Everybody's involved in the screen game. All right, sometimes you'll see them push the offensive line and they'll push left because he got them rolling. Like it's certain thing. He'll move the pocket. If he feels like it's a D-end that's on the right that's killing him, he will move the pocket. These are the things coordinators do. Like they are ready for situations. And that's what Coach Bieniemy is. He practices situations. So when he's out there practicing, and let's just say Montez Sweat is having one of those days, he's doing plays saying the left defensive end is killing me. What can I do to slow him down? And that's why you see a lot of chips with the running back, a lot of chips and come out late with the tight end that also bends the zone. Anytime you let these guys out with hesitation, it bends the zone. If it's man, it's show the linebacker will say, all right, my guy blocking, I'm finna go get the quarterback. So these type things, I think, stretch the field in organic ways instead of planned ways with play calling.
No, I agree. And I do like the way they use a screen game because you're right. I have seen every player, I think, on offense catch a screen pass in some fashion. And sometimes it's like a receiver in a screen set situation that usually might be for a running back or something like that. Yeah. And so, I really kind of enjoy that, but it's also the precision they run the screens at and how, you've got to be right here. You can't be up here because you are going to blow this all up. And not that other coaches aren't detailed or disciplined. I just think you see more adherence to that. What about like defensively? Who's some of the guys that stand out? Because you're defensive backs. To me, St. Juice is at a really good camp.
Yes.
What you thought about that group?
Yeah, first of all, I call him the Pope St. Juice. He looked like he in his bag. He looked like he has made it to a point where everything has slowed down to him. All right, nothing's moving fast. He doesn't look panicky anymore. He's always been one of them people like Carlos Rogers, always going to be in the right good position. He's always been that guy, but you can tell this offseason, he focused on let me get my hands on the ball because turnovers get DBs paid.
Carlos didn't do that.
Yeah. But guess what? I told y'all Carlos needed LASIK, and when he got LASIK, he went to the Pro Bowl. So maybe y'all should listen to Dr. Fred Smoot sometime. Right? So at the end of the day, I think St. Jude's very similar in that way, got a knack for being around the ball, but don't complete the play. Now he's starting in this camp, he's completing the play. And I think it might have a little bit to do with the fact that your team drafted 2 corners in the first 2 rounds of the draft. You know, nothing like healthy competition to really make you focus in and understand what the task at hand is. I think Emmanuel Forbes has shown that he belongs in the league. Yeah. Now the big question with him is understanding how good can he be? Because I think he can be good. I think sky's the limit. You know, I don't really got to say anything more about Emmanuel Forbes. He just needs to stay healthy and continue to learn the game because he's going on to get better and better. Now, I'm going to tell you who's really looked good to me. Cam Curl, he's so steady that we don't appreciate his steady. He's so steady that we don't appreciate his leadership. He's that piece that you don't appreciate until you the left out the right corner. He that piece that you don't appreciate until you the defensive coordinator and he comes up and he's out the game because he's hurt. All right, so Cam Curl, I thought he looks good. Kendall Fuller, constant pro, he looks good. The back end, I think they're gonna have one of them years, Keim, with this front like I've had, think about my defensive backfield with me and Sean Taylor, LaRon Landry, Sean Springs, Walt Harris. What if we had a defensive line like this? I would have never backpedaled. I'm not backpedaling. I understand that you got to get the ball out quick. I understand that you can only double move me, but won't be no intermediate routes. I'm not practicing for that. Like this front and this back end gonna help each other because their back end gonna hold them for a 10th or 2-3 of a second longer, giving them chances. So now Montez Sweat 9 sacks turn into 18 because that's how much he's around the quarterback. So they work hand in hand, and I think they're gonna really benefit from this front. And I'm gonna tell people like this: this front could be 9-11 people deep. They're gonna have to cut some good players.
They're cutting somebody like the Andre Jones kid, the 7th round pick. I've seen him. He's flashed. You know, I'm curious to see how he does. And you know, then you also have the 5th round pick, KJ Henry. There's Benning Potway. Like they like him, and I don't know if you can keep him. So they're going to be somebody that I agree. But let me ask you too with the defensive backfield, because one of the things that has really jumped out to me, I think they're a smart group, and you see the ability to disguise. So you guys could do that. So how important, because you talk about getting the quarterback to hold an extra 3 times. That's also how you do it, by just fooling them for a little bit. Do you see them doing that a lot? And is that something you think could be a big part of their game?
They are great quarterback manipulators. That's what we call it. Got to manipulate the quarterback. You can't let him come out and know where he's going to go with the ball before the snap. So you got to move late. You got to move suddenly. You got to know where your soft spot's at when you not in the right spot by the snap of the ball from trying to hold it too long. And the natural thing I see them doing is they're communicating so good and they're understanding and they're what we call rocking and rolling, and they're so interchangeable. Because see, DeForest can go down and play the strong safety just like Keim can. So when they rocking and rolling like that, it's already hard for you to understand, are we in zone and we in man? Now you mix that in a pot with the fact that we do like to play a lot of match coverage that looks like man and mimic zone. And we also have a front that makes you say, I have to make decisions quickly. And by making decisions quickly is why they moving like that. Yes, Sam Howell is going to throw it into spots he shouldn't, just like a lot of more quarterbacks for 17 games this year going to throw it a lot of places they should. And I think that has a lot to do with Cameron Curl and the rest of them guys all being on the same page. It will save you individually, and it will save you as a group. If the back end is on the same page, it stops all the big plays. And they've been a good defense. Let's not talk. We're not talking like a top 5 defense.
No,
like they've been a good defense. This allows them to be great. This allows them to be the reason we win. Like, it's going to be some games that I think this defense is going to take over the game that we don't even know how good our offensive is. I think this defense has a chance to be that special. I really do.
It's funny because you talk about like the zone match and how they play things. And there have been a number of times where you see them, it's like, that looks like press man. And then they're able to hold it. And it's like one time I even saw St. Juice kind of like fake a jam at Terry, and Terry's got to change his release because of it. But by changing his release, it allows St. Juice to then, he's got to go he took a wide release. And so St. Juice takes an angle and takes him out. Yeah. Or the other thing is, here's where the chess match comes in during practices, where you watch like a couple of times Howell got them to jump with the hard count, where he got him to reveal. Well, like, okay, like Forbes up here, it looks like press. Now he's opening up. Okay, now you got this. And but I feel like the D-backs do that really well. And again, I like watching them because of that. But do you have a big concern or big question still after a few weeks of camp?
I really don't. I told people last year this team was a talented team because this team won in spite of. All right, when you're winning in spite of, which we had to do most of my career, that means you got a good team of functioning guys. All you need to do is find that brain trust in the offensive coordinator and find a trigger man and find you a quarterback. And I think we got better. I think he's better than Heineke. I know he's better than Wentz. All right, so at the end of the day, I think we brought in Nick Gates. That's going to help on the offensive line. I think we already had the wide receiver room. To me, is one of the better wide receiver rooms in the NFL. Very versatile, very skilled, and we don't get enough props for our running back room. I like
Brian Robinson. I like those two. I think they're good.
And B-Rob is going to showcase something different with catching out the backfield, which he always could do. They just never threw him the ball. So I think they're going to get a chance to be special on offense, especially because the defense is going to, 1, give them some short fields, 3, get a lot of 3 and outs, 4, make sure this kid is protected. And that's what I think they got a chance to do.
I like Brian Robinson a lot. I think his hands are very good. The only issue with his hands is when he occasionally turns up too soon. But I think otherwise he catches it. It's not an issue with his hands. He catches really well. Speaking of Nick Gates, like, why is it that centers or offensive linemen, like, he's showing his gut every practice?
Yes.
The guys with great abs aren't doing that.
We love the big nasties when they do that because it sets a visual tone. It is we are nasty, filthy, dog. We are the hogs. It's like, it's one of the things where when we see it as football players, we look at it as tough, bravado. I don't care about this gut. And then Nick Gates feisty too. So that's what I love about him. He ain't scared to mix it up. And he done already proved, without our fans even wondering, that he can play in this division. He done played against Payne and Allen. He done played against the Eagles. He done played against everybody, the Cowboys. So he ain't new to this. So he will be ready to go. And I just think that the mixture of the guys that we brought in, we are a better team. I think we can all agree we are a better team right now than we were a year ago. And if you tell me we're 2 games better than a year ago, ain't we looking at 10 wins?
Yeah. Listen, this is a better camp than they've had. And you always have to take that into account. And I was telling someone yesterday that, even when you were playing, when back, the Gibbs era and all that, there were a couple of years where like this team worked harder than what their record is right now. And then you guys rattled off 6-7 wins in a row or whatever. And I think this team, the way they're working is better. And I always kind of start with that because there were other years where, it was the year before you got here and it was the Norv Turner second year when they bring in Dion and they have Bruce Smith, they have all this. And it was like, they all were like, hey, yeah, we're great. We know it. We're going to, just the way they practiced, that was it, right? They practiced as if they were great. Whereas this team, I like the purpose that they practice with. And I think that helps. So, we'll see. Then you got to get the good quarterback play.
And the fact that they all suffering from the Roger Dangerfield kind of like no respect kind of thing. Nobody ever gave us respect because they just, Washington had, black cloud over it. So nobody respects us. And these team, the players feel that. They not only feel that, and that's why I love it for these kids, that they get to see the fans in the stands. It was still hype like this when I got here in 01. Right. It was crazy. Like people could drive into Pennsylvania, Pennsylvania was packed. So I'm just glad Harry McLaurin, John Allen get to experience what it feels like to be a real Washington football player. Like this is how it really feels.
Yeah, no, I think it's been great having them back. It's even for us, it's like when they're not there, when there was just a few there, there's no energy. And when there are a lot there, there's a lot of energy. Last thing then, going back to the whole, and it just kind of popped up because when you talk about the Rodney Dangerfield stuff, that's why I wanted to go back to this. But after what Ron said, you had a lot of, you had some national types saying, hey, are the players soft? And that's always a bad word to call a football player. And I wouldn't do it because like a soft NFL player is going to flatten me like a bug on a windshield, right? So, but can that kind of stuff galvanize? If you hear that, does it put a chip on your shoulder? Is that just like a stretch?
I think it's static noise. I think that's just static noise. Right now, in the preseason right now, you got better things on your mind. One, making the team, making the 53. It's not promised for a lot of guys. Two, trying to establish and get into, well, you got a new offensive coordinator, so you need to get into his graces because he ain't married to none of y'all, all right? And the fact that we got a couple of guys on contract years, from Cameron Curl to Sweat to Chase Young. Like it's a lot of prove it in this room. It's a lot of different motives to why guys want to give their best this year. A guy like Deron Payne wants to prove I am worth the money. All right? A guy like John Allen wants to prove I do have the staying power to play at the level that I'm playing with and could keep ascending. So Terry McLaurin wants to say, thank you for this money. Let me show you why I'm worth it. All right. So at the end of the day, it's good. Different guys playing for different reasons. I think it's all going to come together for some controlled chaos, organized chaos. That's a Greg Williams term. He used to always say that we want to be organized chaos.
Yeah, and you guys were, but I always enjoyed his practices. Anyway, Fred, you're always worth the money, so I appreciate you joining me, and always great insight. It's entertaining, man. Thank you very much. And I don't want to just say entertaining. You're fun to hear, but you have good insight, and that's why I like it too. So thank you very much.
Anytime, Keim. Anytime, brother. All right.
Thanks to Fred for joining me, and thank you, as always, for tuning in. I'll be back Thursday, Friday morning with another podcast, again with Sam Fortier from the Washington Post, Matthew Paris, Washington Times, Pete Haley, formerly of NBC Sports Washington, and then again Saturday morning with a podcast about the first preseason game. I'll talk to you next time.